It's not enough that we can and have successfully traveled to Mars. Now we are trying to conduct flights across it, even if they are remote. What does this mean for the future of space travel or even mobility on other planets? Is this just a thing for astronauts? And I wanted to explain this. We have the ability, for the first time ever, just recently, NASA was able to activate and operate a helicopter to fly across the planet of Mars. I want to let that sink in. Not a rover that was driven by, astronauts on the planet. All happened remotely after the thing is on the ground. And as I like to say, this ain't Spacely Sprockets. This is real tech right here. They call it NASA's Ingenuity Mars helicopter, and this happened on April 19th. This was a historic event that came from years and years of research and testing from every organization, from consumer electronics to the government. Consider this. It was a 4-pound solar-powered helicopter which reached a height of 10 feet that could not have been done without the help of 6 specialized brushed DC motors from a company called Maxon. And I want you to hold that thought for a minute. Consider this. Because gravity is different and the air is so much thinner, they had to figure out how to get lift with very thin air. I mean, think about the ramifications of that. How do you even recreate that to even test it? I mean, that's pretty cool. The specially designed motors are armed with 10-millimeter drives that control the pitch of the rotor blades and the direction of the flight for the helicopter. Ingenuity had to be light as possible due to the atmospheric conditions of the lack thereof of the red planet. And here's the part that fascinated me. The rotor blades had to cut through fewer air molecules to maintain flight. One word, lift. How do you get lift when there's nothing to lift?
See, I had someone on my Facebook kind of whining about this,
Whining?
I'm so glad NASA got this done. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you do things that have never been done before, you have to create things that have never been created.
Right.
When you do something like landing on the moon, you might not understand how that ends up creating tennis shoes, joysticks, solar panels, insulation, GPS. I mean, you really just don't know. But when you set a goal like that, the amount of technology revolutions that can come after. I mean, computers. I mean, you wouldn't be. I made the joke. I commented. I'm like, you wouldn't be able to be messaging me right now on this computer if it wasn't for us, landing on the moon. I know it's not what you're complaining about, but it wouldn't have been shocked if you've been one of those people complaining about it, just like we were back then.
All I'm going to say is this: Al Gore did not invent the internet. It was actually invented in a research project by the Defense Department.
Yeah.
In 1969.
Because they had to figure out, because before that mission, computers were the size of a wall in a room. I mean,
shoot, the whole rooms.
And they had to figure out how can we condense it to get at least something like that, on the ship, and then I think on the ship anyway, and then in their factories to make it more mobile based. It was basically the first mobile computer they ever made.
Right, exactly. Now, they talked about the biggest challenge in developing the motors was the extreme weight requirement. Every tenth of a gram had to be saved to make the helicopter fly. There were 10 of these electric motors built into this helicopter and a customized gearbox that will be used to handle the soil samples inside the Perseverance rover. Would you believe right now on the red planet of these Maxon electric motors, there's over 100 on the ground on Mars right now amidst all the devices that they've got up there.
There's 100 what?
Of these little electric brushless motors.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 100. Now, here's something that should strike you. According to NASA in a press release, the second experimental flight will be scheduled for no earlier than April 22nd. Should the helicopter survive? They did years and years for one flight, 10 feet above the ground for a number of seconds. And can't only imagine how much money that cost. And they were only expecting to get one flight out of it. And if it still survives, they will determine how to expand its flight profile for future flights. Understand the technology of communications. You're looking at millions of miles to give instructions to a computer to manipulate it on a planet where there's nobody there to verify it. It has to verify its actions itself and take the time to send that verification back remotely that distance to mission control to verify that yes, no, maybe, how, whatever. It is a testament to American technological might and engineering that we can even do this. Can you imagine if you can do it over millions of miles, you can manipulate something halfway around the world?
Absolutely.
Underwater, deep sea exploration, high elevation exploration, extremes in temperature, which is the case on Mars. All of this stuff, vibration, movement, including a whole bunch of if, when, maybe, how. Like, for example, how will this vehicle survive over time the extreme temperature cycles of the planet? What will it do when it's dark because it's solar powered? Will it be able to refire, how will it conserve energy during the dark period? What about any sandstorms or any kind of dust up of debris that might choke or otherwise compromise its systems? All the stuff they got to think about. And all the inventions and patents that will spawn that will improve life here on good old planet Earth. I think it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to mention, if you can develop a helicopter that goes around Mars, can you develop something to go from maybe Mars to, I don't know, Venus?
Yeah.
Or Jupiter or Saturn? That hops from planet to planet rather than having to start from Earth?
It sounds like it's been a resounding success so far. It's going to complete 2 more flights, and then they're going to have it start scouting the planet for other things. I think.
Can you imagine the potential? I mean, I just can't. We talk about mobility, and folks, this is mobility. It's just out of this world kind of mobility, but it's still mobility, and mobility's got to start somewhere. It's not always by walking or driving. In this case, it's remote control aircraft, not spacecraft, but aircraft. And what they develop there in less than ideal atmospheric conditions can certainly have an impact in inhospitable conditions here on planet Earth, be it high, low, underwater, in extreme heat situations. This thing does well. There's no telling what can happen to make our world a safer place as a result, as people take this technology and apply it in different ways. And I think that's really the thing that we're talking about. You don't know how a given technology will be applied in different ways once it's been discovered, once people figure out what to do.
Oh, yeah. And money in these areas tends to come back in so many. We can always look at the price tag, but you have no idea where that trickles down and where it ends up helping us later on.
Or how it's applied when someone says, what if?
Yep. This brings us to the end of our program.